You've been told that money is a public good created by governments to serve the people. But what if that story isn't the whole truth? What if the system that controls the US dollar, the world's most powerful currency, was secretly designed by a handful of private bankers to make sure they always had the upper hand? Today, we'll journey back to a clandestine meeting that forever changed the course of American money, creating a system that concentrates power in the hands of an unelected few. But before we start, if you enjoy videos that expose the hidden mechanics of money and power, make sure you subscribe because we have a lot to uncover together. And tell me in the comments, which country are you watching from, and what time of day is it where you are right now? I'm curious to see how far this conversation reaches. Let's start with a question. Why is it that the most important decisions about your money are made behind closed doors by people you never elected and can't fire? The answer isn't just about economics or politics. It's about a secret meeting held over a century ago. It's about a deliberate transfer of power. To understand this, we need to travel back to the eerie, isolated setting of Jekyll Island, Georgia, in the year 1910. The story of the modern dollar doesn't begin in a government building. It begins in the dead of night on a private train car. Under the cloak of darkness, a train secretly departs a station in New Jersey, its passengers traveling under false names. On board were men who represented roughly 1/4 of the entire world's wealth at the time. This wasn't a holiday or a casual gathering. It was a mission, one of the most secretive financial gatherings in U.S. history. Their goal was to design the future of American money, away from public scrutiny and political debate. They were about to draft the blueprint for a central bank, an institution that would reshape the American economy and, eventually, the entire world. The secrecy was paramount. If the public knew that the nation's most powerful bankers were writing the laws to regulate themselves, the plan would be dead on arrival. Inside the exclusive Jekyll Island Club, shielded by remoteness and strict confidentiality, sat the architects of this new financial order. The group was a who's who of American finance and politics. There was Senator Nelson Aldrich, a powerful Republican leader and the father-in-law of John D. Rockefeller, Jr. He was joined by his private secretary, Arthur Shelton. Representing the titans of Wall Street were Henry P. Davison, a senior partner at J.P. Morgan and Company; Charles D. Norton, president of the First National Bank of New York; and Benjamin Strong, another key figure in J.P. Morgan's empire; Paul M. Warburg, a partner at Kuhn, Loeb & Co., and an immigrant from a prominent German banking family, provided the European central banking expertise they desperately needed. For 10 days, these 6 men debated, argued, and drafted a plan. On the surface, their mission was noble: to create a system that could prevent the devastating bank panics that had periodically crippled the U.S. economy. They wanted to control inflation and stabilize the financial system, but beneath that public-facing goal was a more private one: to shift the ultimate control of the nation's money supply from the unpredictable hands of the public and politicians into the steady, private hands of bankers. They designed a system that looked governmental but was, at its core, controlled by private interests. There were no reporters, no public records, and no transparency. Just 6 men in a room, deciding the financial fate of over 90 million Americans. Their secret blueprint, drafted in the seclusion of Jekyll Island, didn't immediately become law. It had to be sold to the American public in a skeptical Congress. The initial plan, known as the Aldrich Plan, was presented to Congress, but was defeated, largely because of its obvious ties to the big banks. But the architects of the plan were patient. They understood that packaging was everything. A few years later, the same core ideas were repackaged and rebranded under a new name: the Federal Reserve Act. In a brilliant stroke of political maneuvering, the bill was pushed through Congress on December 23, 1913. Many members of Congress had already left Washington, D.C. for the Christmas holiday, ensuring minimal opposition. President Woodrow Wilson, who had campaigned on a platform of reigning in Wall Street's power, signed it into law. Publicly, the Federal Reserve was promoted as a decentralized system designed to protect the average person from the volatility of Wall Street. It was presented as a triumph of public oversight over private greed. Privately, however, it was the culmination of the Jekyll Island Plan. The Federal Reserve System was a masterful compromise. It created a central board appointed by the president, giving it the appearance of public control. But the real power was vested in the 12 regional reserve banks, which were and still are privately owned by the member banks in their districts. The dollar was no longer just a piece of paper backed by gold. Its value was now intrinsically tied to the policies and stability of the Federal Reserve, a private-public hybrid built on a foundation of secrecy. The trust that once resided in a tangible asset like gold was transferred to an institution conceived by bankers for bankers. Over the next century, the Federal Reserve's power grew beyond anything its creators might have imagined. From its headquarters in Washington, this quasi-private entity would come to decide the nation's interest rates, manage the money supply by printing trillions of dollars, and act as the lender of last resort for the entire banking system. Its decisions would ripple across the globe, influencing markets from Tokyo to London. The great economic events of the 20th and 21st centuries, the Great Depression, the post-war boom, the stagflation of the 70s, the dot-com bubble, and the 2008 financial crisis were all profoundly shaped by the Fed's policies. The institution born in secret became the most powerful, yet least accountable financial force in the world. Even U.S. presidents and members of Congress found their influence over it to be limited. The Fed's governors are appointed to long 14-year terms, specifically to insulate them from the political pressures of elected officials. This independence was meant to ensure sound monetary policy, but it also created a powerful, unelected body that operates with minimal democratic oversight. The U.S. dollar became the world's undisputed reserve currency, a pillar of global commerce. But the question that echoed from the halls of Jekyll Island remained: who truly controlled it? The people or the system that was designed in secret? The hidden history of the Jekyll Island meeting serves as a powerful reminder that money and power are inextricably linked, often forged in secret meetings far from the public eye. The dollar in your pocket, the mortgage on your home, and the value of your savings were all shaped not by a democratic process, but by a private consensus reached by a handful of powerful men a century ago. Their goal was to create stability, but in doing so, they also created a system where control over the world's most important currency was centralized and privatized. Today, as the world stands on the brink of another financial transformation with the rise of digital currencies like Bitcoin and the development of central bank digital currencies, CBDCs, the lessons of Jekyll Island are more relevant than ever. We must ask ourselves, who is designing the next version of money? Where are they meeting? And what are their true motives? Are the new systems being built for the benefit of all, or to further concentrate power in the hands of a new tech-savvy elite? The story of the Federal Reserve warns us that when the rules of money are written in secret, the public rarely comes out on top. In a world built on ambition and greed, inside the secret meetings that shaped the U.S. dollar uncovers a hidden chapter in financial history, a story of power, manipulation, and lessons the world refused to learn. From the corridors of Wall Street to the boardrooms where nations are shaped, this narrative explores the rise, the fall, and the silent consequences that changed how money moves. Every moment builds towards revelation, how decisions made in pursuit of profit reshaped economies, altered lives, and defined the meaning of value itself. As the truth unfolds, one question remains: did we master money, or did money master us?